Dust blew across the road like forgotten prayers. The wind carried silence, not the kind that calms, but the kind that remembers. The sun hadn't risen yet, just a dull grey light touching the broken edges of the wooden fence. Cold air moved like it was searching for something it had lost. The gravel road led to an old barn that hadn't seen paint in 10 years, maybe more. The hinges on the door moaned even before it was touched. The rancher stepped down from his truck slow, like every bone in his back had a memory. He didn't speak, just grabbed his worn hat off the dash and tugged it down. His boots crunched the frost-covered ground. He walked like a man who'd stopped expecting anything new from life, only the same. Cattle feed, silence, and fences falling apart in the wind. He didn't knock. The note had said, "Come early." Said there was a good horse ready for trade. Inside, the barn was still. The kind of stillness that don't feel natural. Light cut through a cracked window, landing like a blade across the hay. Dust hung in the air, suspended, unmoving, like it was holding its breath. He stepped forward once, twice. Then he heard it, not a voice. Not a word, just breathing, shallow. Wrong, like someone trying not to be found. He turned toward the far stall. The boards were rotted, nails rusted like dried blood. And behind them he saw her. Not a horse, not an animal, a woman. She was barefoot. Dirt and bruises made her skin almost the same color as the wall she leaned against. One arm raised above her head, cuffed to an iron ring sunk into the post. The other hugged her body like it still believed it could protect her. She didn't scream, didn't beg, just looked up, eyes like glass, swollen shut on one side. But the other watched him without fear, like she'd already decided what kind of man he was. The rancher didn't move, not for a long moment. His hand stayed at his side, not reaching. Not running, just breathing, same as her, two strangers, one barn. A silence that felt like it was waiting for something to break. Then, from the back room, a door creaked. Footsteps, the kind that didn't rush, the kind that knew exactly where they were going. The sheriff's truck pulled up just as the rancher stepped out of the barn. His face was pale beneath the dust, but he didn't speak. The woman was still inside, chained, barely conscious. He hadn't touched her. Just covered her with a worn horse blanket and called it in. Now half the town was here. Farmhands, old-timers, a few boys skipping school. Eyes narrowed under dusty hats. Boots shuffled, but no one stepped forward. Must have been a squatter, someone muttered. Could be a setup, another added. Chewing a toothpick like it made him wise. The sheriff adjusted his belt, stepped forward like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. His voice was casual, too casual for what had just been seen. "She say anything?" he asked. The rancher's jaw locked. She couldn't. A silence, heavy, dry as bone. Then came him, Clay Weller, big man. Big name, owner of the land, the barn, and half the livestock deals in 3 counties. Wore a leather vest with silver buttons, like he was trying to dress history into his chest. "What's all this fuss?" he called, stepping through the crowd like it parted for him naturally. "Heard someone broke into my damn property." The rancher didn't look at him, just stared down at the dust between his boots. Sheriff tilted his head. "Rancher here says there's a woman inside." "Chained up." "Beat to hell," Clay blinked. "Just once." Then he smiled. "You mean that girl?" "Oh hell, she ain't right in the head. Ran off from some rehab place up north. Thought she was a horse last time someone saw her. Tied herself up, probably. You know how they get." Laughter, the nervous kind, rippled through the watchers. No one asked her name. No one stepped inside to check. Just murmurs and glances, like being uncomfortable was the worst thing that could happen to a man. The rancher finally looked up. His voice came low, like gravel dragged through rust. She didn't tie herself. Clay's smile didn't change. "And you'd know. You buying a horse or playing hero?" The rancher didn't answer, just took one step forward, then another. The crowd shifted, not away from him but away from Clay. The sheriff looked between them, scratching the back of his neck. We'll look into it. Maybe bring in a nurse. Get her to talk." "No," the rancher said. "She don't need to talk." His voice was calm, final. "I saw enough." Another silence settled, thicker now. heavy with guilt no one wanted to claim. Then from the barn, a creak, bare feet stepped into the light. The woman, wrapped in that dirty blanket, face shadowed but upright. She didn't cry, didn't tremble, just stood there. Everyone turned, no one spoke. Even Clay took a step back, and in that moment, without a word, the story changed. She wasn't a thing to dismiss. She wasn't crazy. She was proof. The truck rumbled along the dirt road. The woman sat hunched against the window, the blanket clutched tight. She hadn't asked where they were going. The rancher hadn't said. She winced when the tires hit a rut. He glanced over, reached beneath the seat, pulled out an old jacket, held it out, not looking at her. She didn't take it. For a moment she just stared, and like weighing whether a small kindness cost too much. Then slowly she reached. Wore it like armor. The ranch house stood alone. Grey wood, crooked porch. No sign of family, no sign of noise. Just an old windmill ticking in the breeze like it kept time with ghosts. He opened the door. Stepped aside. She hesitated. Looked down at her bare feet, bruised and dusted with dried hay. He didn't push. She stepped in. Inside was warmth. Not soft, not cozy, but honest. A fire crackled low in the stove. A cast-iron pan still sat on the burner, oil dried from yesterday. He walked to the sink, turned on the tap, washed his hands slow. She stood by the door. Still, he placed a mug on the table. Steam rising. Black coffee. Didn't say drink. Didn't ask if she wanted it, just placed it there. He moved to the stove. Tossed in some chopped onions, leftover potatoes, 2 cracked eggs. The smell filled the room. Sharp, real, familiar. When he slid the plate to the table, she was still by the wall. So he took a seat, across the room, picked up his fork, ate slow. After a long pause, she moved, sat. Ate with fingers at first, then slower, 1 bite at a time, like she didn't want it to disappear too fast. Still, no words. After the meal, she sat back, breath shallow but less broken. She noticed the photo on the wall, a woman in a faded dress, wind in her hair, standing beside this same table. The same man, younger, no smile. The rancher caught her gaze. Gone, he said. His voice didn't carry sadness, just the fact of it. The woman looked back down, then quietly pushed her plate forward, not asking for more, but thanking without words. He nodded once. Nothing more. Outside, the wind shifted. A low gust rattled the window. She flinched. The rancher stood, walked to the closet, pulled out an old wool blanket, frayed at the edges, and laid it on the couch. He didn't point, didn't guide her, just walked to the back room. Shut his door. That night she didn't sleep much, but she lay on something soft, in a house that smelled of wood smoke, not fear, and for the first time in days, no one locked the door behind her. She woke with the sound of boots on dry floorboards. The smell of wood smoke and coffee came before light did. No shouting, no doors slammed, just the rhythm of someone moving with purpose. The rancher fed the fire, poured 2 mugs, left one near the couch. Didn't wait for thanks, didn't ask if she'd slept. Just stepped outside into the frost. To fix the fence that never stayed fixed, she stayed curled under the wool blanket, knees pulled to her chest and staring at the steam from that mug like it was magic. She didn't know why she drank it, maybe because it was warm, maybe because it was hers. Later that day, he came back with hay on his shoulders and splinters in his hands. She stood in the corner of the kitchen, watching him clean his tools. He didn't ask her to leave, didn't explain what he was doing, just worked. She slowly moved toward the sink, turned on the water, washed the mug. That was the first thing she did. Next day, she swept the floor. Next day, she folded the blanket when she woke. One night, a storm moved in, not violent but loud enough to shake loose shingles. The wind howled like something old and angry outside. She froze when thunder cracked, curled in on herself like memory still lived in her skin. The rancher didn't say anything, just placed a kerosene lantern on the table, lit it, sat down. He carved wood with a small blade, smooth, quiet motions. She watched from the couch. After a while, she got up, sat across from him. He didn't flinch, didn't speak. She reached out and took the spare piece of wood beside him, held it. Didn't carve it, just held it, and he let her. A few days later, she found herself standing beside him in the barn. He was fixing a beam. The horse he'd meant to buy was still there, untied, but never left. A quiet mare with a torn ear and kind eyes. She brought him a hammer when his hand reached back. Not a word. Just rhythm, nails, wood, cold breath. They worked side by side until dusk. No talk, no plan. Just stillness shared. In the evening, she sat on the porch while he checked the fences. She'd learned to watch the sky, how it changed color near the edges, how clouds moved like smoke over mountains. He came back with dirt on his hands and never explained where he'd been. She never asked. One night she made soup, only potatoes and salt. He ate it. Good, he said softly. She didn't smile, but she didn't look down either. Sometimes trust isn't built with promises. It's built when someone lets you be. The next morning she opened the barn door before he did. The mare neighed once. She reached out, hesitant, stroked its mane. It didn't pull away. Behind her the rancher stood still. He didn't say she was ready. He just handed her a brush and walked away. The rancher was out back when it happened, fixing the wire near the creek. She opened the door, not because she wanted to, but because she had learned to face things now. 3 men stood outside, sheriff, deputy, and Clay Weller. His hat was too clean, his boots too polished for real work. He didn't look at her like she was human. He looked at her like a problem that hadn't been properly buried. "Ma'am," the sheriff said, not meeting her eyes. "We just need a quick word." She said nothing. The rancher appeared behind them, hands dirty, eyes already tired. Clay turned.
"There he is."
"Mr. Savior, still playing house with stolen goods?" No one laughed. The sheriff cleared his throat. "Look, Clay's got papers from the center. Says she's under mental observation. Claims she was never kidnapped. That she what?" the rancher asked quietly. Clay smirked. "That she belonged to someone. That she wasn't right. And you? You just went and snatched her like a stray dog." The woman stepped back. Her breath caught, not in fear, in rage. Not at Clay, at the silence. The sheriff shifted his boots. "We can't hold him if she won't speak. Legally, she's not signed anything. Not even her name. I don't have a name," she said, voice raw. First time speaking in days. Maybe weeks. Everyone turned. She stepped forward, shoulders straight. Bruises faded, but not forgotten. "You burned it off me," she said. "Looking at Clay, I had to call myself it. You made them say I wasn't a person." Clay's grin twitched. "That ain't proof." She raised her arm. The cuff mark still dark on her wrist. The skin still healing. "I bled in your barn for weeks. I cleaned your filth. I slept in straw like a dog." She turned to the sheriff. "You want papers? Here's my body. Signed in bruises." Silence. Even the wind stopped. Clay took a step forward, too confident. The rancher didn't reach for a gun, didn't shout. He just stepped between them, slowly, like a wall of earth that had stood through too many storms. "She stays," he said. "She's not property." Clay's voice rose. "This is theft. You're interfering in my—" "Not anymore." It wasn't loud, but it was final. The sheriff sighed. "I don't see her running. I don't see her chained. If she's safe here, we'll call it civil." Clay spat in the dust. "You'll regret this." But the rancher just looked him dead in the eye. "I already regret plenty." Clay left. The sheriff nodded once and followed. Only the deputy lingered a moment. Looked at the woman. His mouth opened, but no words came. Then he left too. The door closed slow. The house was still again. She sat on the floor, not shaking, just breathing. The rancher didn't speak. Just brought her water. When he handed it to her, she didn't take it. She reached and touched his wrist, lightly. Not for thanks, for truth. The mare kicked at the post, nervous. The woman stood beside her, stroking the rough mane with one hand, the other clutching the rancher's old scarf like it was a shield. They'd packed what little she had. The jacket, the small carving he gave her, a pouch of bread and salt. She was supposed to leave at sunrise. Sheriff's order. For her protection. The law couldn't hold Clay Weller, but it could remove the witness. The rancher hadn't spoken all morning. He just sat on the porch. Hat low, hands calloused and still, she stepped out. Frost clung to the railings. Wind whispered through broken fences. "I'll go," she said softly, "so they don't burn your house next." He didn't answer, just looked out at the land, the wide, endless quiet that never gave anything for free. She stood in front of him now. "I'm not afraid of running." Still, he didn't move, but his eyes finally lifted. "I am," he said. 3 words and everything stopped. "I ain't afraid of men like Clay. I'm afraid of what happens if the next girl ain't got someone to stop 'em." She blinked. "I can't stop them all," he continued, "but maybe I can stop one. Right here, right now." She shook her head. "They'll bury you." "Or worse," he nodded. "Maybe," then stood, walked into the house, came back out with something wrapped in cloth. He handed it to her, a book. Inside, old documents, receipts, ledgers, photographs of bruises on strangers, women, a pattern. "They ain't just hurting you," he said. "He's been at this a long time. He's careful, too careful. But even snakes leave skin behind." She looked at the book like it was on fire. "I was gonna burn it," he admitted. "Keep peace. Why didn't you?" He paused. "Because peace bought with silence ain't peace at all." He walked her to the truck, helped her in, didn't say goodbye, just looked up at the clouds. "They'll come for me," he said. She nodded. "Then I'll send them back." He closed the door, and she drove. The snow began to fall harder. The ranch faded behind her in the mirror, like something remembered, not lost. The snow melted slow that year, like it didn't want to go. It left behind a hush, a wet silence, and footprints that didn't belong to anyone anymore. The rancher still lived alone. The barn roof still leaked in the same corner. The mare had a foal now, shaky legs, wide eyes. He'd never named it. Some days he sat by the window longer than usual. Not waiting, just remembering. The woman didn't return, but letters. Did short, careful, handwritten. "I'm warm. I sleep through the night now." I spoke my name aloud. "Today." Each one came folded around a dried leaf, or a pressed flower, or a news clipping with someone else's face. Another case exposed. Another man arrested. Little revolutions from silent women. One day, he found a carving on the porch, smooth wood, shaped like a hand, open and reaching. He didn't ask who left it, didn't need to. The world had turned, just slightly, and he had turned with it. The bruises were gone from her skin, from his silence, and even if they never spoke again, she had taken something from him, not his safety, not his time, just a part of his stillness, and turned it into motion. He fed the fire, sharpened the tools, taught the foal how to follow. He didn't lock doors anymore, didn't flinch at shadows, didn't forget her, but he no longer held her story like a wound. He held it like a truth. Something lived, something survived, something freed. The snow was gone, but the wind still whispered softly across the plains, and in that silence no one was chained anymore.